Welcome back to the Sports Authority, Local12.com digital editor and columnist Richard Skinner. Joining me, we're going to touch on a lot here, but we will not be able to talk about the Xavier game. We are taping as that game is going on, so we won't have much to say about that.
I did pick the winner.
But I would think that with Butler losing 3 starters an hour before the game, that
starting a kid that was averaging 1 point a game.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
This will be after the
So we
highlights
can't really
air
jinx it,
in the
can we?
Sports Authority, so this is kind of trippy right now. But
correct.
we won't talk about Xavier, and I don't really want to talk about UC today, but we kind of have to. 90-52 losers. It's the worst loss in terms of point margin for the Bearcats in close to 10 years, and it was like a riptide. They just started swimming, and then all of a sudden, it just got way out of hand really quickly.
It showed the talent disparity, I guess. I mean, sometimes scores can be deceiving because one team UC just looked like it was a deer in the headlights on offense, and Houston, which is a good offensive team but not great, just got on a roll when it did feel like a steamroll. You know, they were sitting there early in the game up 13-8. I'm thinking, okay, you're showing some grit again. You're going to hang around. You've dealt with all this adversity, and maybe you're going to push Houston to the brink. No, I think it just shows this is not to besmirch the previous 4 wins, because you can't take those away from them, and they earned them and they deserve them. But it does show you that those teams weren't very good, and this team is. Houston's really, really good. I know I've had arguments, and we have it on the podcast tonight, on the college basketball podcast with Chad Brender and Rick Brewing. I think Houston's Final Four capable. I also think they're upset second round capable. They disagree with me. They don't think they can get very far in the tournament. I think they're pretty good.
Okay. Zach Harvey opting out for the remainder of the year. John Brannon, nothing but courteous in terms of his remarks on Zach, and it doesn't sound like Zach's going to be back.
No, yeah, I mean, this seems like it was pretty final, and it's just another. I know it leaves people questioning, John keeping players and why are so many players leaving, and I fully understand that. I just think that's the way things are today. When kids are unhappy with whatever reason, thinking they should have more shots, more playing time, maybe some of it is on the coach at times. I'm not telling you it's not at times. But it just feels like it's just such an easy way out anymore for all the kids. And yes, I am the belief that kids should get 1 free transfer. I mean, coaches move all the time, but it feels like this has just become too easy for players to say, I'm done.
Okay, and we saw that with Duke as well, but that kind of has spurred them along. Going on at the same time as UC and Houston was Ohio State and Michigan. And that was a incredibly high-level game.
That felt like March Madness. There's been so many college basketball. The way this season's gone, right? It's just been serpentine. You don't know who's playing sometimes. Yeah. It doesn't feel like even big games don't feel like they've got a lot of juice to them. And I love college basketball, but I'll turn on a game that I feel like there's got to be some juice, and there's just not. That one today, that felt like an NCAA tournament game, a high level, when 2 of them that were 1 seeds, last week when they had the reveal, and they both looked like it.
Yeah, it lived up to it. A lot of people say after the Super Bowl, people start paying attention to college basketball, and if that was the case, you saw a fantastic game, and it just looked like Michigan was too much sort of inside with Hunter Dickerson, the 7-footer, but 2 teams that really look like they could make some runs.
Yeah, and I mean, they had just come back, Michigan, last weekend after being off for, 3 weeks because of the COVID situation, went to Wisconsin, looked awful for a half, and Wisconsin's good. They're an NCAA tournament team and a decent seed. Michigan's playing terrible for the first half, and then they turn around and pull away from Wisconsin on the road. They followed up with this win over Ohio State. I think they've probably solidified themselves as a 1 seed. Ohio State's still certainly in that mix, but today, probably, if you're looking for somebody outside Gonzaga and Baylor, and I think that's what all we've tried to do this year is who outside of those 2 teams. Michigan's pretty obvious to me that they've got to be in that conversation.
Yeah, they look good. I do want to get back to Houston, just to ask you this question. They are obviously the 6th ranked team in the country. Do you think that they have a discussion with the AAC, or does the AAC come to them and say, hey, maybe sit out the conference tournament? Because if you do, that means we're guaranteed 2 teams in.
Yeah, and I don't know how the selection committee would do that, to be honest with you. I think at that point they may say, listen, we're taking one of the 2. We'll take the tournament champion or we'll take the regular season champion. You guys can pick which one.
But I think
I know, and I still don't believe that's going to – I just can't see that taking place because the problem is, and to that point, I don't think there's another team in the league that would get it at large. Wichita actually leads the league, I think, by percentage points. They did going into today. It's all, all the games are so convoluted, but I think by winning percentage, they were in first place in the league. But they're still very on the bubble, if not below it at this point, to get in. Yeah, I think that's a conversation you have because you're sharing a pool of money in a season where there hasn't been a lot of money to pool.
But you don't think Houston would get an at-large if they didn't play in the tournament?
No, they absolutely.
Okay.
They'll be a 3 seed for goodness sake.
But you think the NCAA committee would say, we're not going to take your tournament champ?
That's Bush League to me. If that's the case, I think I say, no, you guys can make a choice. If a team wants to opt out, fine, then they can opt out for all of it. If they have to miss for COVID reasons, we understand that part of it. I think that's the slippery slope we're in because there's not a lot of leagues that are like the American. I mean, it's either like an SEC, a Big Ten,
right.
Pac-12, whatever, where you're going to get multiple teams anyway, and you're not going to allow multiples to back out. You're just going to say at that point, we're done with our conference tournament. And then those other leagues, the Horizon, for example, is a one-bid league, so it doesn't matter if Wright State or Cleveland State opt out.
Right.
Well, okay, tough luck. We're taking the tournament champion. That's just a slippery slope to me, man. I know that's been talked about during this week. I'd hate for that to take place. I think that would be awful dicey. Now, you could also argue Houston could go in and realize, hey, it's probably not going to hurt our seed anyway. Kelvin Sampson does not like the conference tournament a whole lot. He doesn't believe in it a whole lot. He doesn't put a lot of stock into it. So maybe they just go through the motions, for goodness sakes. And, that certainly would help UC because I do think UC against just about anybody else in the league competes. They just don't compete with this team.
Okay. Kentucky is getting a little warmer. And it was sort of the situation we were talking about with UC winning some games against some inferior opponents. But the win over Tennessee, maybe this team has it figured out. Can they make a push here?
I had a buddy of mine send me a thing today. I think they've got 4 quadrant run wins, maybe 3. I didn't realize they had that many quadrant run wins, as many and more than some teams that we've been talking about, which is pretty alarming.
Some teams are scrambling to get quad 1 wins on their schedule
I think Kentucky, after yesterday, was 64 in the net. That does not have them even in the conversation to make the tournament. Although I did look at bracketmatrix.com today, and a couple of people apparently had put them in whatever bracket they had put together. And it's a compilation of all the brackets, as you know. I thought that was really interesting. It kind of sucks. Their game Tuesday with Texas A&M has now been postponed because A&M has COVID issues. They do have another chance to pick up a quality win with Florida, and they still play Ole Miss. They got a chance to play themselves into a spot where get to the SEC tournament, go 3-1 and get yourself to hover around 500. The committee may look long and hard. I know there was a story I put up this week from the AP on our website that even the committee said we may look at sub-500 teams. It's just been that kind of a goofy year, and maybe Kentucky does enough to put a resume together to do that. I think it's probably too little too late, but I think if you're looking in that league, I mean, Alabama's so squirrely that they can beat anybody by 20,
right.
And they've beaten a lot of them by 20. They're a team that could make a run to the Final Four like Auburn a couple years ago, and they could be the team in the second round of the tournament, shoots their way out, and they're done losing to a 10 seed or whatever. And that could happen in the conference tournament. And really, if you go outside of them, and I think Tennessee, talent-wise, is the second best team. What did you just do to the second best team in the conference? You buried them at their place. So, yeah, I think Kentucky's a real scary team for the rest of the league in the SEC tournament because there is some talent. It's just it hasn't meshed. There have been issues with scoring the ball, but right now, man, they've got it going. And funny part was they kind of flipped the switch offensively, started giving up a bunch of points, winning those games in high-scoring games. And then against Tennessee, they do a little bit of both, play just enough good offense and really shut down Tennessee on defense.
Yeah, 15-point win was pretty impressive on the road against a ranked opponent. Let's talk about the Reds real quick. You've got an article up, the 3 things the Reds have to do before the season starts. Outfield, what happens there with if there is no DH, the bullpen, and shortstop. Of those, were those ranked in order?
They were.
Okay.
But I think we've talked enough about the shortstop situation, and so I'll just gloss over that part of it. I just don't know if there's a major league starting shortstop on this roster. Jose Garcia might be in 2022 or 2023. I don't think he's going to be this year. D. Strange Gordon's played 13 games at shortstop since 2013. He's not the answer. Kyle Farmer's 29 years old and he's got 300 major league at-bats. Do you think there's a reason for that? Of course there is. He's a nice utility player. Kyle Holder doesn't have a major league at-bat yet. He was a Rule 5 draftee. It doesn't sound like a starting shortstop to me. So that's the main one. But I do like what they did in the bullpen. You got some guys that have done it in the past and done it well. Sean Doolittle, Cam Bedrosian. And you look at a couple of his years, they were really, really good. Noe Ramirez, getting Jeff Hoffman. You've got Amir Garrett. You got some arms that you've already had. Lucas Sims, if he gets back healthy, which he says he should be. I kind of like that, hey, put a bunch of veteran arms together on the cheap. If they're healthy, you suddenly go, hey, Sean Doolittle's done this before. Cam Bedrosian's done this before. Noe Ramirez has done this before. And I got Amir Garrett. And I got Lucas Sims. And I've got TJ Antone didn't make the rotation. I got him. I really like the potential of the bullpen. Spring will certainly dictate some of that. And then the outfield one to me is the one that's just again, here we are. It feels like the Reds always feel like they're in that 4 guys for 3 spots, right? And here we are again. And yeah, I guess you could, in theory, platoon. Jesse Winker hit left-handers a little better last year, but in a small sample size. I think we all agree the DH was perfectly suited for him. I think he made 35 of the 60 starts at DH that the Reds had as a designated hitter, and some other guys had 7, 8, 9 somewhere along that lines and kind of filled in the blanks. Let's just say you open up against a right-handed starting pitcher. Does Nick Senzel become the odd guy out? I mean, I thought this was the cornerstone guy we were going to eventually build around. Is he not any longer? Could you make him into a Ben Zobrist? I'd love to see that. I mean,
yeah.
He has played the infield.
Right.
He can play center field.
Can he solve the problem? Two of your three problems.
Right, correct.
The outfield glut and the shortstop
yeah,
problem.
maybe. And that's that. I wish they'd take a look at that. And maybe they will.
Doesn't sound like they want to.
I know. It doesn't sound like they want to at all. I think I'd at least look at it. I don't see what it could hurt. And if, let's just say he struggles defensively, okay, by that point you put him back in the outfield and hopefully everything's going good. A couple of problems are nice problems to have. I don't think the bullpen's a problem. I think it's just how does it sort itself out. Yeah. I think there's some proven guys to do that. The outfield will probably sort itself out, but the shortstop spot, if you're carrying a daily lineup that has Tucker Barnhart, whoever the shortstop is, and a pitcher, that's a pretty woeful bottom of the lineup. Now, I know Tyler Stevenson can maybe fix the offense at catcher, and you hope he does. But, man, otherwise, holy cow, the bottom of that lineup.
Okay, well, we've got a long season ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Skinny's already 7, 8, 9, but, the Reds have had bigger problems in years past.
Yes, they have.
So, Richard Skinner, Local12.com digital editor and columnist. All of his work on our website, including the aforementioned Skinny podcast with Chad and Rick. Thanks, Skinny.
You bet.